In this paper, we present our work on topologically interlocked cell-transitive 3-Honeycombs, which we call Handlebody Plesiohedra Unchained. The focus of our work is a class of architected materials known as topologically interlocked materials that are known for high impact resistance and energy absorption capabilities. Much of the previously known examples of topologically interlocked assemblies involve interlocking pieces that are arranged on a surface. While there has been some recent work on osteomorphic blocks that tile volumetrically, their design space is restricted to only a limited class of parametric shapes. Our aim in this work is to add to this rich literature by introducing truly volumetric, topologically interlocked tessellations. For this, we seek inspiration from the concept of a plesiohedron. A plesiohedron is a shape that is space-filling, meaning it can be repeated such that the entire space can be filled with no gaps. In geometry, a tiling or tessellation of a k-dimensional space is called a k-honeycomb. If all the tiles, or cells, of the honeycomb are identical, it is also called a cell-transitive. As a result, a plesiohedron, by definition, leads to a cell-transitive 3-honeycomb. In fact, many well-known polyhedral, such as the cube, truncated octahedron, triangular prism, and many others, are plesiohedra. What makes a plesiohedron different from other space-filling solids is that they are Voronoi cells of a set of points that satisfy the symmetric Delaunay property. For example, consider the unit cubic cell with 3 points arranged according to the threefold rotational symmetry about one of the cube's diagonals. If we consider these points as Voronoi sites, we end up with a single repeatable space-filling tile. This property has been used in the study of quasi-crystals as well. Inspired by this, our work leverages the observation that arranging higher dimensional Voronoi sites, such as curves and surfaces, to generate symmetric Delaunay sets will lead to a non-convex, positive genus space-filling tile. Our conceptual framework is rooted in the idea of arrangements of geometric entities, such as points, lines, and curves, that can serve as Voronoi sites for decomposition of a given volume. To do so, we make use of a carefully selected subset of crystallographic space groups, specifically the isometries of the cube. Consider the symmetries of the cube generated by rotations about the 4 vertex diagonals, 6 edge diagonals, and 3 face diagonals. Now, given a Voronoi site, the set of rotation matrices about these axes can be used to generate an arrangement of the site. As an example, consider an axis of symmetry of the cube, in this case an edge-centered axis. Now consider a local coordinate frame attached to a Voronoi site at an arbitrary location inside the cube. Rotating this frame about this axis by 180 degrees and creating a copy of this frame defines the arrangement with respect to the selected axis, thereby producing an arrangement of the coordinate frame. Note that applying rotation again does not yield any new frames, but only copies of existing frames. This is a representation of the sufficient and unique copies of the initial Voronoi sites, meaning there are no overlapping or intersecting frames. Building on this example shown before, we define the following 4 types of basic arrangements. A rotation of an edge-centered axis by 180 degrees gives us E2. A rotation about a vertex-centered axis, i.e. a body diagonal, by 120 degrees gives us V3. And rotations of 90 and 180 degrees about the face-centered axes gives us F2 and F4 respectively. Applying one arrangement after the other gives us a composition. In this example, we compose an arrangement by first applying V3 followed by E2. What is important to note here is that choosing 2 arrangements arbitrarily does not always result in a symmetric Delaunay distribution of points on the Voronoi site. For example, applying the V3 arrangement applied on the previous arrangement with the E2 arrangement causes additional copies to be made, making this set of operations not sufficient and necessary of all Voronoi sites. However, applying an E2 with a carefully selected axis on another E2, we get the sufficient and necessary copies of the original Voronoi sites, because when applied again, we get no additional frames. This is an important rule that drives the generation of cell-transitive 3-honeycombs. In other words, any combination of arrangements that result in the complete set of copies of a site without repetition leads to a space-filling unit tile. Our tile generation methodology simply involves the selection of a site, arranging the site, and applying Voronoi partitioning of space to obtain our plesiohedral tile. In this example, we first choose a circle as the Voronoi site, and generate an arrangement of this circle using the V3 arrangement. As such, we can choose any shape including a single curve or curve complex, or even surfaces. This arrangement of sites is then patterned in 3D space simply through translated copies of the cube. The Voronoi decomposition of this arrangement of sites results in a tiling with congruent tiles. In this example, note that simply taking a circle results in a complex genus 1 tile. For a complete description of the procedure to obtain Voronoi decomposition with higher dimensional sites, such as the circle in this example, please see our paper. We implemented our conceptual framework in Houdini to explore different Voronoi site designs that can be used to create Handlebody Plesiohedra. Using a line as the initial site allows for the generation of tiles that contain saddle surfaces, leading to interlocking geometry. The choice of arrangement affects the shape of the tile along with the number of neighbors. The length, angle, and initial line placement parameters can be varied to control curvature in the saddle-like face, and thereby controlling the amount of interlocking. For example, notice that increasing the length of the line results in an increase in the number of concave surfaces. This is because longer lines result in an increase in the number of neighbors for a given tile, thereby potentially increasing the intensity of interlocking. In the second example, using circles as sites allows for the generation of genus 1 tiles, which can be parametrically transformed into genus 0 tiles by changing the radius of the circle. With arbitrarily complex Voronoi site designs, a wide range of tiles can be generated using our method. To verify the topological interlocking property of our tiles, we implemented an algorithm to determine the degree of freedom of a tile in a given assembly of space-filling tiles. In this paper, one of our aims is to demonstrate that even though our Handlebody Plesiohedra are volumetric, a carefully selected subtiling can also be topologically interlocking. For example, consider this tiling. Now, let us consider the plane perpendicular to the symmetry axis, and retain only those tiles that intersect that plane. We observed that by changing the line angle, the tile can change from greater than 1 degree of freedom to completely constrained with 0 degrees of freedom. Additionally, we studied the interlocking of tiles generated using a composition of arrangements. We found that composite arrangements can assist in interlocking capabilities because of a higher degree of interaction between neighboring sites. Our design exploration and analysis suggests that this new class of shapes could open up a rich design space for several applications in engineering, art, and architecture. Thanks for watching!